Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Spooky AF. My name is Rob, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Suze.
Hello, how are you guys?
How are you doing today, Suze?
Oh god, I got Wi-Fi again, so I'm over the moon after having spent a full weekend without Wi-Fi access.
I actually can't imagine that.
It was like living in the goddamn Stone Age.
That is the most first world problem that I can actually think of, is not having access to internet.
Oh yeah, and it just made me acutely aware of how the 5G signal on my phone is actually dog shit if you actually want to do anything with a video.
Fair. Well, I guess you can view it as for a weekend you were living in the 90s again.
It's true, but the economy wasn't growing and Buffy wasn't on. So, it was the dark 90s.
Oh, fair, okay. The 90s that we don't want to remember.
Precisely.
So, to start things off, Suze, you previously used to live in the UK, so you actually have more of a knowledge of the geography of the UK than I do. Have you ever been to Suffolk?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay, fair enough. So, for anyone that's unaware, Suffolk is in England. Have you ever heard of the Rendlesham Forest?
Never in my life.
Excellent. This is good to know. So, anyone that is in any way familiar with UFOs will be well aware of what I'm already talking about. Today, we are going to be discussing the Rendlesham Forest incident.
Okay.
Which is famously known as Britain's Roswell.
Oh my god, all right.
Yeah. And just to add a cherry on top of this cake, this is also set in the 80s. So this is pure like synthwave era, aliens, everything's just perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing. I'm genuinely both delighted that you haven't heard of this case and also kind of surprised. But I'm really glad that I've got you with no knowledge of this.
Yeah, you've got me with no knowledge because like I said, my interest in UFOs has always been fairly limited. So yeah, you're working with a blank slate here.
I'm really, really glad. It also just means that regardless of whatever I tell you, you'll just believe it anyway. So there goes any facts at all that I was potentially going to be concerned about.
Rob, that's how our podcast functions in general.
It's true.
We're just talking shite to each other.
Yeah, as we've established, it's trust me, bro. So to set the scene, we are traveling 1980s Suffolk, specifically the 26th of December 1980. And
okay.
We are traveling to a, funnily enough, US Air Force base in England.
Okay.
This is RAF Woodbridge. And as I said, it's the 26th of December. It's like 3 a.m. on the 26th of December. So it's effectively Christmas Day still.
Yes, absolutely.
We are in this US Air Force base. It's kind of like this like joint US Air Force RAF sort of weird Cold War agreement where the US basically had a bunch of Air Force bases in the UK to pretty much protect them from communism.
Okay, naturally.
Yeah, it's the only way I can really describe it. As it's an active military base, there's still, even though it's Christmas Day or Stephen's Day, there's still going to be patrols.
Yeah.
So on one of these patrols, military personnel were out doing whatever it is that they do when all of a sudden near the east gate of this RAF Woodbridge, reports started to kind of filter in involving a series of unexplained lights and potentially a mysterious object within the forest. So a number of military personnel start claiming that they've witnessed lights. They don't know what it is. And it's starting to kind of come in more and more over the radio, basically. And as this is obviously the 80s, I'm picturing it's just a lot of like men with mustaches, especially because they're all RAF personnel. So, they all have mustaches.
And they don't, there's no mobile phones, so they're not, playing Candy Crush or anything. This is the highlight of their night.
No, they basically all look like the security personnel from Stargate SG-1.
Yes.
Even though that's set in the 90s, I feel like it's relevant to this now. So they're all on high alert. They don't know what's going on. But the deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles L. Holt,
yep,
he's on the scene. He's fucking raring to go here. So he decides he's going to round up the lads, he's going to get them all together, and he's going to go conduct an investigation, document his findings. It just so happens that his wife actually for Christmas Day got him an audio tape recorder, like a dictaphone.
Okay.
So he decides the very first use of this dictaphone is going to be on the hunt for UFOs.
Oh, he's our kind of dude.
He is definitely our kind of dude. he knows what's up. He's like, he saw this and he's just like, yeah, ready to go.
Yeah, he's like, I am evidence-based and this is fucking evidence.
Exactly. He's our kind of guy. So just to give a little bit of background context here before we progress, in the kind of the public psyche at the time, this is, as I said, 1980. Mm-hmm. Close Encounters of the Third Kind had come out in 1977. It was like November 1977, so kind of coming into 78.
Yep.
So this film's only like 3 years old at this point.
And that was a huge film.
And it was a huge film. So it's kind of, UFOs are kind of coming back around into the public psyche again. Obviously, they were huge in the 40s through to the 60s. They kind of drop off a little bit in the 70s, probably because America's more concerned with Vietnam and, you know, communism and the Cold War. Mm-hmm. But as we're coming back into the 80s again, it's starting to like ramp back up again. People are, you know, starting to look in the sky and, you know, they're starting to ask questions.
Absolutely.
So the Colonel Holt, by the way, great name, I feel. Colonel Holt. It's like real classic American, all American man.
Yeah, it's a strong Midwestern name.
Yeah, of course, yeah. He rounds up the lads, as I said, heads out, records it. He claims that the security patrol saw lights apparently descending into the nearby Rendlesham Forest. They didn't know what it was. So the servicemen did kind of, rightfully so, initially think that it could have been a downed aircraft. They kind of got together quite quickly and went out. And I suppose there's kind of a valid fear on obviously an active Air Force base that it could very well be a downed aircraft that could be coming in.
Yeah, that's reasonable. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Or worse, it could be the Russians, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, at worst, it's a downed aircraft full of commies.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, no one wants that. This is potentially a Red Dawn situation. They get together, they headed into the woods, and according to Holt, when they entered the forest to investigate, they witnessed a glowing object that was metallic in appearance with coloured lights.
Okay.
They attempted to approach the object. It seemed to kind of move through the trees, just kind of...
It's like hovering?
Yeah, kind of like moving between the trees, kind of like moving away from them. Mm-hmm. So... From what I've seen, it doesn't seem to necessarily be avoiding them, but it just seems to be still moving. He also reports damage to trees as well, so it would make sense. An object descends into a forest, you would expect some damage to trees, especially if it's out of control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, nothing too surprising there. What else they also report, though, is that they could hear the animals on a nearby farm, quote, going into a frenzy.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah, so they try to kind of investigate it, and the lights kind of keep moving through the forest. They're kind of trying to chase them, but they don't really seem to get too close to it. And then for some reason, shortly after 4 a.m., so an hour after the lights are seen, local police were actually called to the scene, but they reported that the only lights that they could see at that point were the lights way off in the distance from the Orford Ness Lighthouse.
Okay.
Which is a good bit away on the coast. So after daybreak on the morning of the 26th of December, the servicemen, kind of not satisfied that they can't really identify what was going on, they decide to return to a small clearing near the eastern edge of the forest, where they reportedly found 3 small impressions on the ground in a triangular pattern.
Okay.
So for anyone that's kind of unfamiliar, triangle-shaped UFOs are actually the most commonly reported shape of UFOs found in the night sky. Even though it's the kind of flying saucer idea that comes to everyone's mind, the most commonly reported shape of UFO is actually triangles. So, you know,
the more you know.
Yeah. You know, take that as you will. So, they see these impressions on the ground in a triangular pattern, as well as what they say were burn marks and broken branches on nearby trees. So then later on that morning, the local police again were called out, this time to see the impressions in the ground, but they thought that they could have just been made by an animal, which is a bit strange that they're kind of back out here again. I'm a bit uncertain why the police are involved in this. I believe that the Rendlesham Forest is kind of outside of the base's kind of ground. Mm-hmm. But there just seems to be this kind of weird collaboration going on here between like US Air Force personnel and the local police, which, bit strange, but sure, look, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1980. Shit was wild.
True, very true. So following on from this then, the deputy base commander, who I've already mentioned, Colonel Charles Halt, he decides on the 28th of December, so now 2 days later, that he's going to visit the site with several servicemen again in the early hours of the 28th. This time, though, they decided to actually bring a Geiger counter with them.
Oh, right.
And he took radiation readings of the triangle depressions.
Oh, they are properly investigating this.
Oh, yeah, this lad is like, he's all in. He's like fully... Like, he's invested now in this. So he decides to, as I say, take these readings in this kind of on the depressions in the ground and in the surrounding area using, as I saw described online, a standard US military radiation survey meter, which, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And they recorded, I think it was reasonably normal background kind of radiation, maybe slightly elevated, but not in any way kind of worryingly so.
Okay.
But crucially, they claimed that they detected a similar small, what they described as a burst of radiation over a half-mile away from the landing site. So that's a bit kind of strange, but... I don't think they can really explain that. And crucially, Halt recorded all of these on his micro cassette recorder, dictaphone, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it was actually during this specific investigation where Halt is already out there with his recorder on record that a flashing light was seen again across the field to the east, and witnesses claimed that it was the same light that they had seen on the first night. So they go to investigate further, and according to Halt, 3 star-like lights were seen in the sky, 2 to the north and 1 to the south, as he said, about 10 degrees above the horizon. Halt claimed that the lights hovered there for 2 to 3 hours and seemed to beam down a stream of light from time to time.
Oh, wow, these are like advanced versions of the Marfa lights.
Yeah, for sure. So they seem to be actually like interacting with the landscape in some way.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. This all happens. People don't know what is going on, but they're there to investigate. So this is it. Halt decides to report this to the higher ups afterwards, and it forms what is now known as the Halt memo. So Halt says in his memo, early in the morning on the 27th of December, 1980, at approximately 3 a.m. 2 USAF security police patrolmen saw unusual lights outside the back gate at RAF Woodbridge. Thinking an aircraft might have been crashed or been forced down, they called for permission to go outside the gate to investigate. It goes on to basically describe what I've already said, that they saw a strange glowing light object in the forest. The object was described as being metallic in appearance, triangular in shape, all what we've discussed. But he says in this that the object is actually like hovering in the sky, and it basically illuminated the entire forest with white light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he says as patrolmen approached the object, it maneuvered through the trees and disappeared. At this time, the animals on a nearby farm went into a frenzy. The object was briefly sighted approximately an hour later near the back gate. He then actually describes the investigations that we talked about the next day, where they went out and found the depressions in the ground and this, that, and the other. So he's actually like reporting this to the higher ups. He takes it that seriously.
Yeah, and that says something, because like you're very likely to be ridiculed for reporting some stuff like this.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And then he basically goes on to describe everything else I said the next day, all the lights in the sky again, same thing, all this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But then he ends it with numerous individuals, including the undersigned, witnessed the activities in paragraphs 2 and 3. Which is what I described. So he's basically saying, like, we've got fucking receipts here.
Right.
So he's kind of saying, like, there's a few of us here that saw this. We're taking this seriously. So that kind of describes the events as they happened. And there is more to this that I will get to, but I just want to check in with you. What do you think so far of all of this?
I remain intrigued. I will say that there is an elevated amount of kind of interaction with the UFO in a way, which is interesting. I find that like the bursts of radiation that they found to be interesting as well, because that's not easily explainable, at least to someone with an arts and humanities degree. That's not easily explainable just in the middle of a forest in England.
That is very true. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm with you on this journey, but I can't say I'm sold yet.
Fair. Okay, that's more than fair. It's my job to convince you anyway, so we'll keep this going.
Yep.
And see how much further I have to go to convince you that this is some real shit. So we'll move to the next bit of this story. as I said, Holt actually had the cassette recorder with him as well. Mm-hmm. And in 1984, so 4 years after this, a copy of it actually was released, and it's become known as the Holt tape. This was actually, for some reason, it was released to UFO researchers by an actual Air Force colonel.
Oh.
So he was actually the one who had succeeded Holt's superior. So he's basically effectively like Holt's new boss, and he decides to go, yeah, cool, you can have the tape.
Right.
So the tape actually basically chronicles the entire investigation in the forest in real time.
Right.
Including their taking of radiation readings, the sighting of the flashing lights between the trees, the star-like objects that they discussed, and the ones they said that kind of hovered and twinkled. But crucially, and this is the best part of it, the tape has since been transcribed, and it's been made available as a link to download the audio from.
Really?
So we can actually listen to the actual tape and hear Holt's basically reaction as this goes along. So I'm actually going to send you a link to this tape if you want to listen to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, this is legit. This is a proper military recording.
Yep.
And transcription.
Yep. Yeah, no, the it's been, as I said, transcribed, made available. The area that I want you to go to, though, is around the 12-minute 40 mark. And I'm actually going to insert this audio into the podcast for people to listen to as well as we go along. So.
148, we're hearing very strange sounds out of the farmers' barnyard animals. It's very, very active, making an awful lot of noise.
Wasn't a pigmentation.
You just saw a light where? Wait, where?
Right in this position here, straight ahead, in between the tree. There it is again. Watch, straight ahead off my flash right there. So there it is.
Hey, I see it too. What is it?
We don't know, sir.
So can I get some? Yeah, it's a strange, small red light. Looks to be out maybe a quarter to half mile, maybe further out.
So in this tape, as you'll see, they're describing hearing the farm animals going crazy in the background.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah. And then on top of this, then they're discussing this light that's basically right in fucking front of them at the same time, hovering there.
Mm-hmm. And it's they're trying to deal with both things. They're all right, yes, the animals are going crazy. There's this light in front of us. Where are our priorities?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And then it goes on to basically say that, I think as the light moved away, all of the animals went silent again.
Oh.
So they're they don't know what is going on here, and for anyone that listens to the full tape, it's 18 minutes long. It kind of goes a bit mad. It talks about how pieces of the craft are falling off of it and stuff. There's descriptions of lights in the sky and everything that's going on there.
Yeah.
They're talking about trying to point this night vision camera and everything at it, seeing if they can catch it on camera and all this sort of stuff. So it's super interesting. And then basically it all ends with the lights basically beaming off effectively. And the last thing that they say is that there's lights beaming down from it into the ground, and then basically the tape cuts off.
Ooh, okay.
So it's a cool tape. I love it. I've listened to it a few times now. And I firmly believe that what this man is saying is he's describing clearly what is right in front of him. I don't think there's any sort of fabrication here of evidence, at least for him.
Yeah.
He firmly believes what he's saying. What do you think of that, Sis?
I'm getting more on board now.
I'm delighted to hear that.
I mean, you're presenting me with a lot more solid seeming evidence than I thought you were going to.
Yep, this is one of the biggest cases in UFO history.
All right.
So this is I had to bring the as I said, receipts to this one. This is a big one.
I mean, and the recording and everything, it's kind of emerging as more. I don't know. I feel like it's getting more grit to it than even Roswell.
For sure, yeah. I suppose this is a time when the tapes and everything, cassette recorders and all, are more commonplace. So it's believable that more and more people would have them. But it's also become it's quite funny because people have said in the age of the smartphone,
yeah,
that if UFOs were real, surely there should be more evidence. It's just interesting that it's not the case still. It's UFOs are still a kind of a rare occurrence, I suppose, to capture clear evidence, video evidence of. So
yeah, I feel like yeah, you never see like an Instagram reel of UFO evidence. It's always like something that was filmed on a potato.
Well, I don't know about your Instagram. My Instagram is filled with UFO videos and such. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I will say that I think that this is probably the best group of people that a UFO occurrence could have happened to. Like, you're dealing with trained military personnel who not only are military personnel, they're Air Force military personnel, so they know what objects in the skies look like.
Yeah.
So if these people are confused,
there's something going on that's, at the very least, is weird.
I rest my case.
Yes. Okay. I'm with you now. I get it.
Excellent. You're fully on board now.
I'm here. I'm here.
I've effectively red pilled you onto this one. So, and this all led to Holt in 2010, who's now a retired colonel. He actually signed a notarized affidavit in which he basically again summarized what happened and then stated that he believed the event to be extraterrestrial and that had basically been covered up by both the UK and US governments.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's a strong statement.
Yeah, 100%. So like Holt is basically like the man's retired. Like he's got nothing. He has no skin in the game at this point.
No.
But even then, he's like, no, I'm telling you, this happened. It's interesting though because in him kind of doing this, it caused a bit of a knock-on in that the base commander from the time, Colonel Ted Conrad, he decided to make kind of like this counter-statement in which he said, we saw nothing that resembled Lieutenant Colonel Holt's descriptions either in the sky or on the ground.
But the recording and everything.
Exactly. And we had people in position to validate Holt's narrative, but none of them could. He basically went on then to effectively just sling shit at Holt. And that it was all basically a lie and this, that, and the other. Which is an interesting take, considering, it, as you said, there's a tape there. Multiple people have said something was there. So I feel anyway, and maybe it's because I'm wearing my tinfoil hat.
Right. I mean, we both are at this point.
We are. I feel like this actually just lends more credibility to Holt saying that there was an effort by both governments to cover it up.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's okay. We've got to historically contextualize this. It's 1980, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 1980. We're Cold War Central. Like we're post Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think there's a proper atmosphere where the appetite for like people wanting to see UFOs is there, but I also sense that like I think that governments were had to like they have bigger fish to fry, and they're like, we can't be handling UFO nonsense. And I think that there was an effort to I could get on board with an effort to cover something like that up.
Yeah, for sure. And just to really lean into the potential cover up here. There was an article that was actually unearthed from 1983 where they actually interviewed Ted Conrad, the colonel who was slinging shit at Charles Holt.
Yeah.
In this 1983 article, so only 3 years after the events, he recalls what he says: 5 Air Force policemen spotted lights from what they thought was a small plane descending into the forest. 2 of the men tracked the object on foot and came upon a large tripod-mounted craft. It had no windows, but was studded with brilliant red and blue lights. Each time the men came within 50 yards of the ship, it levitated 6 feet in the air and backed away. It took off at phenomenal speed. Acting on the reports made by his men, Colonel Conrad began a brief investigation of the incident in the morning. He went into the forest, located a triangular pattern ostensibly made by the tripod legs. He did interview 2 of the witnesses and concludes, those lads saw something, but I don't know what it was.
Ooh.
So, at some point between 1983 and 2010, this colonel has decided to completely change his tune. And all I'm saying is...
somebody got to him.
Someone got to him. The cigarette-smoking man from the X-Files.
The lone gunman.
Rocked up at his door, yeah, and basically went, you saw nothing.
Oh, God. That's a conspiracy right there.
For sure. I honestly feel now I'm even on a watch list now just for even saying this,
You know too much already just from your cursory research.
Yeah, for sure. I know way too much. I'm going to start seeing patterns now and everything. And, I'm going to end up being disappeared at some point.
I can't do this by myself. You can't be disappeared. Come on.
Well, if I'm disappeared, you got to keep the UFO mantle going.
Then it just
you're
becomes
all in now.
Yeah, it just becomes a full me tinfoil hatted like the red lines. I've got them on my board.
It all's connected. It's somewhere. I'm telling you.
Apophenia be damned.
Those damn aliens.
Yeah, exactly. I suddenly grow a mustache just because of the type of research I'm getting into.
Yeah, oh yeah, like you're fully on board. You take up chain smoking, just surviving off a diet of black coffee and cigarettes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's your life then. That's it. You're involved in everything then.
I've got your picture in the middle of the board and like red string all over the place. Sticky notes that say like space, what do we know?
You put all of your electronic devices in the microwave when you've gone back to like typing everything on like a typewriter.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So just then to add just a little bit more to this, there's quite a lot of information on this. There's supposedly a substantial Ministry of Defense file on the subject. But it's not ever been fully released. Some people think that this is evidence of a further cover-up. That basically it kind of leads to a larger pattern of information suppression concerning the kind of true nature of what these objects are.
Okay.
And yeah, supposedly the full file was released at some point, but some people are saying that it's kind of a bit patchy and that they're not fully convinced basically that it's the full file. And I think the main kind of thing that points towards it is that there's a lack of any sort of in-depth investigation in the publicly released documents. Some people are kind of saying, if it was such a serious thing, like why is there no evidence at all of an investigation? So the MOD have apparently come out since and basically said like, oh, we never took the case seriously. That's why there's no evidence there. But all I'll say is, if you're the Ministry of Defense and you have US Air Force personnel saying we saw something that came into our base with no warning at all on radar, I don't think you're not going to take the case seriously.
I will say, okay, I'm going to take off my tinfoil hat for a moment.
No.
And I know. I will say that it could be, like, how I guess more recently I've seen things pop up in, like, my social media periphery about UFO information being kind of released by the government. And it could be that, like, since Roswell, since Aurora even, governments are just using UFOs as like they're kind of spoon feeding us this weird paranormal shit, so we stop asking questions about the actual social injustices going on in the world. Or both.
There is a cover-up, and now they're slowly starting to release information so that we don't have mass hysteria when eventually disclosure comes out fully.
When we find out that one of our leaders is a lizard person.
Yeah, exactly. When Zuckerberg finally takes off the human skin that he's been wearing this entire time.
I mean, I kind of think Mark Zuckerberg is just like, I think he's evolved past his body and he is now just ChatGPT.
Oh, he is. Yeah, he's the alpha and the omega. He's
he's like, I am all now.
Yeah, he's both past, present, and future.
Yes.
It's possible. I do love those really badly edited videos on YouTube, which apparently shows proof of Mark Zuckerberg's eyes blinking like a lizard.
Oh, yes. Those are so funny.
They are incredible. So I'm going to get into my least favorite part of this, which I'm going to call skeptical analysis.
Okay.
There are parts of this where people are obviously calling shenanigans, and I would be, I can't not talk about Rendlesham without talking about the, potential alternative theories. One of the bigger stories that kind of came out of this afterwards was one of the sergeants who was involved with the investigation, Jim Peniston. Mm-hmm. At some point, he claims he kind of changed his story a little bit and claimed to have actually encountered a craft of unknown origin in the forest.
Okay.
And goes so far as to say that he actually touched the craft and had information beamed from the craft into his mind, and that it was in the form of like binary language, like ones and zeros. Yeah, there's just not really much else I can say to that.
I'm silent because I don't know how to react to that.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to say to that. He claimed that there was like hieroglyphics on the craft as well, and that they beamed information, I assume telepathically, into his brain through the form of binary code.
That he suddenly understood.
So he claims he doesn't understand it, but that he remembered it enough that he could write it down in his journals.
11000. Shit, was it a 1?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
It was a 0.
So supposedly he's written it all down, and it's all totally legit, and
Yeah.
it's I feel like someone may be, potentially trying to maybe get a name for themselves as someone who's a little bit more popular, or trying to get people to ask him questions. Maybe he's, not enjoying retirement or something. I don't know.
There's something deeper going on there.
Yeah, for sure. Curiously, in the recording from Holt, at no point does he talk about Peniston approaching the craft and putting his hand out and having information beamed into his brain.
Yeah, that was not mentioned.
No. So, we're going to move on from that. I just wanted to touch on it, and I don't ever want to talk about it again.
That's fair, we shouldn't.
Yeah. Another theory is that the incident was a hoax. The BBC apparently said at some point that a former US security policeman claimed responsibility for creating strange lights in the forest by driving around in a police vehicle, that the lights he had modified.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence at all for this. He, just seems to have just claimed this for some reason. Mm-hmm. Other people have said that it could have been a downed Soviet spy satellite, and they created this, mad story of a UFO as a kind of a cover, which it's one way of doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that might be even more far-fetched than a UFO.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, we won't give much credence to that either. The most widely accepted explanation, though, for the sightings is that they were kind of a combination of factors. Mm-hmm. So on the kind of initial sighting, when the airmen saw something apparently coming into the forest, it actually supposedly coincided with the appearance of a bright fireball over southern England, like a bit of burning up rock or something in the atmosphere.
Okay.
And then, so that's point one. Point two, then, they say that the supposed landing marks were apparently identified by police as rabbit diggings.
Okay.
They say that this kind of leads that no evidence has emerged to confirm that anything actually came down in the forest, that it was just rabbits. And then finally, supposedly the flashing light that was seen from the forest lay in the same direction as the Orford Ness Lighthouse. Mm-hmm. And when the eyewitnesses attempted to approach the light, they realized it was further off than they thought. And then the timings on Halt's tape, allegedly, when you listen to them, the lights that he sees and reports flashing every 5 seconds, they correspond with the flash rate of the Orford Ness Lighthouse.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, there you go.
And yeah, that's what they claim. Now, I will say, fair enough, if, it was a case of the lights were coming from Orford Ness, they're flashing at the same rate, I don't dispute that you probably can see it from the base. That's fine. Totally accept that. However, Holt himself, in the tape, which you heard, describes light getting beamed from a craft down into the ground and that he saw bits of metal falling off of it. I don't think a lighthouse light is going to be doing that.
That would be unusual for a lighthouse, for sure.
Yeah. And with that, I basically rest my case. There's a few other bits and pieces, but there's not really anything else to it. There's now a UFO trail that you can walk in Rendlesham Forest. It's basically just a walking track.
I just Googled Rendlesham Forest just so I could get a visual, and yeah, I just saw the UFO trail.
Yeah. At the very end of the trail, there's like a mock-up of what the UFO supposedly looked like, created by a local artist or something. Apparently, it's actually really fun.
So have they kind of embraced it like Marfa has?
Yeah, pretty much. People kind of go there. It's almost kind of like a UFO pilgrimage in a sense. People go there and kind of go walk the trail and kind of see what's going on. I think the base now, I think, is closed down as well, so there's no kind of fear of US military personnel kind of being around you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end. There is one final hoax theory which I wanted to save to the end because I actually found it quite funny.
Okay.
So in December 2018, a British UFO researcher claimed that the incident was set up by the SAS as a revenge plot on the US Air Force. He claims that in 1980, the SAS parachuted into RAF Woodbridge to test the security at the nuclear site. The USAF, the Air Force, had recently upgraded their radar and supposedly detected the black parachutes of the SAS men as they descended into the base. They claimed that the SAS troops were interrogated and beaten up, with the ultimate insult to them that they were called unidentified aliens. So, allegedly, to enact their revenge, the SAS gave the Air Force their own version of an alien event, and they decided to create these rigs of lights and coloured flares in the woods, and then they sent up black helium balloons that were like remote-controlled kites or something to carry suspended materials.
I'm on board with this, like, massive prank.
Yeah. So, yeah, they claim that there was this elaborate prank where they had, like, radio-controlled helium balloons with, like, kites and everything on them, and that they dropped materials from them, and, yeah. That's been investigated, and it's been concluded that the story is total bullshit. But I thoroughly enjoyed reading that one.
Yeah, I think I've taken off my tinfoil hat, and I'm now on board with the US and UK militaries just being lads. Just lad culture, just lad culture, but nerdy lad culture. Like, they're just decided to throw this the most elaborate prank you could imagine.
Just doing it for the banter.
And do you think I think part of it was also probably them going out and, like, spanking a cow so it makes weird noises, so then they're like, oh, the farm animals are making weird noises.
Possibly. Look, in this crazy world, I guess anything's possible.
Yeah.
But I firmly believe it was a UFO, and the halt tape basically does it for me. Tells me everything I need to know.
I like it. You've taken the piece of evidence and you're sticking by it. Yep.
It's everything I need to know. He's describing, he's a trained military personnel. He's a colonel. Like, the lad's been around a while. He knows what's up. If he's saying it's a UFO, I think it's a UFO. and that's all I have to say on the matter. So that kind of concludes the event, the story, what happened, and then some of the supposed explanations to it all, and that kind of nicely concludes it. As I said, I was a bit kind of nervous about this story because it is really famous. it's a heavy hitter in UFO circles. So I hope I've done it some justice and not made any glaring mistakes or said anything that I shouldn't have. But it was a very, very fun one to research.
Oh no, it was a fun one to listen to. I'm glad you did it. And just keep in mind, we need to remind the audience that, they come here for the spooks, and they don't come here for necessarily the most solid, provable of facts.
That is very true. I'm glad you're the one to say it, Sis.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I stand behind us. Just like I said, like it says in our podcast description, we are facing the existential terror of every day by podcasting from the paranormal playground.
Yep, this is true, and the paranormal playground is a fun place to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially in a midweek post-work slump that we're both in.
We're both actively in. All right. Well, does that wrap it up? Is that the incident?
That wraps up the incident. That brings it all to a nice conclusion. And I will say, as of today, it is still completely unknown exactly what it was. And I think that's the best way for it to be.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this, and if you have any thoughts on it yourself or any theories, please do get in touch with us. We are pretty active on Instagram at the spookyaf pod. Or if you'd like to get in touch with us on Gmail, you can contact us at the spookyaf podcast at gmail.com, and we check in on that as well. So any theories that you have or any other areas that you'd like us to investigate or look at, you can let us know as well, and we'll certainly look into it at some point, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and stay spooky.
See you guys next week.
Take it easy, guys. Bye.